Hello! So, I'm going to talk about commanding voices today, and then I'll talk about some other stuff. I'll go on a little bit of a rant. I have just trenched through puddles trying to make this video the first time, and instead of going on the path there, I went where you can't really see it, but I went that way through the puddly grass, so my feet are wet and I feel a bit miserable. Oh, I just walked in a puddle. There's a Seaton path over there. Like, what am I doing? Oh my God, the water, dude. What have I done? That isn't a path. Oh, this is the path. Over there is where I was walking through the water. But anyway, commanding voices. I haven't had this experience probably for years, probably before I can actually fully remember what I was going through, because my early 20s with psychoses was I didn't know what was going on. There was pretty bad experiences happening, you know, all sorts of things, because I had no idea that I was in psychoses. So, you know, I think I've spoke about it. I accidentally broke into someone's house thinking that I'd been bought that house and all this stuff. It was a very, very bad period of time. But obviously now, as 10 years have passed of suffering from this condition, I now kind of recognise it before it fully takes over me most of the time. However, 3 weeks ago, I had this experience where it took over me again, and it took my confidence with it, because I felt like, wow, you know, maybe I'm never going to shake this thing. Maybe it's always going to be part of my experience, and I don't know. But it is a work in progress, isn't it? Anything is in life. But 2.5 weeks ago, I had the commanding voices experience again. And what that's like, to try and explain it to someone who's never experienced voices or hallucinations, imagine that you're sat in a room and there's a cake in the middle of the room and you really want to eat this cake. You really want to eat it. It's like your favourite tasting cake ever, right? Now, if you're alone in that room, and you've been told by someone outside the room not to eat this cake, if you're alone in the room, you can probably, as adults, hopefully, we can all resist eating the cake, right? However, imagine there was a room full of people and they were all like, go on, we won't tell anyone, we'll say we knocked it on the floor, or go on, eat the cake. And they were like, and then they started chanting, they were like, eat the cake, eat the cake. You'd feel that peer pressure, even if you didn't give in to the peer pressure, you'd feel the peer pressure. You'd feel the desire more strongly to eat the cake. And it's like that with commanding voices, because you'll have a lot of voices throughout like the day or throughout the year or whatever, however long they persist. And when I'm hearing them, they're sometimes attached to things I'm doing, but most of the time they're kind of trying to dissuade or like take me away from what I'm doing. And then what that does is that doesn't really make me feel like I want to eat the cake. But sometimes, like 2.5 weeks ago, I will get some which all converge about something that I might want to do or might not want to do. And then what that does is it creates the feeling of being in that room. And it kind of pushes you, makes you want to do the thing that you shouldn't. And you'll hear, and I'm not going to say in this video because I'm trying to tone down what I've been saying, but you'll hear people say about, you know, they'll want to K someone or something. And that's where it's the most dangerous extremity. But my insight into that is that we all have those emotions about people, if we're being honest with ourselves. People do irritate us, and sometimes we'll fantasize about those things, and sometimes we might even think about how much we just want them to, you know, go away and we don't like that person. But what will happen is when the voices converge on it, they can be like whispers of encouragement, not to make you do something like that, but they can increase the chances because it's like peer pressure. And one of the ways that I think, this is how I dealt with this 2.5 weeks ago, is I always say to myself that if I am unsure, or if I feel like something else is influencing me, I will not act. And I know, you know, I used to get confused because people would say, sometimes you have to act when you're unsure. This is one of my things about rogue philosophy, like unintegrated philosophy, where people just tell the masses quotes without it actually being to specific people. because I'd get confused with these philosophies. But then I had to decide, well, I'm someone who has these hallucinations, I'm someone who has these auditory hallucinations. For me, it's better to not act than it is to act and be wrong. And so I've always taken that standpoint. And then what I'll do is, once I've kind of got over that initial, because you'll be surprised how much of you goes into your episodes. So lots of people who haven't experienced psychoses will often think, well, it's like you change, you're a completely different person. It's to some degree, yes, because you're not seeing things the way that you would, and you change because of that. But you also take who you are into the delusions. And so if you really focus on a strict philosophical discipline for yourself, so not acting when you're unsure, or not doing something when you feel like you're being influenced by something else, you'd be surprised how that goes into the delusion with you. Even if you think you're being pursued by the government, or in one case, this is too emotional probably, I had a very, very bad experience with that, and I took myself into that experience, and if anything, it showed me that I was stronger because of it. So, I've thought about this the other day actually. I think psychoses, schizophrenia, any of these psychotic conditions which makes you think you're in a different reality, it's kind of like a weird kind of training in a way, It's like, who else can think that they're being pursued by like several secret organizations and have to deal with the nerves of that? Because it's real, like the nerves you go through in that experience are real. And so even, if you've been through one psychotic episode in your lifetime, in my opinion, you're probably stronger than like the vast majority of people, just because most people will never even haven't experienced that extreme, And so I don't act when I'm unsure or feel like I'm being influenced by something else other than my own logic and my mind. And you'd be surprised how well that can work for you. And I think that's everything I want to say about that. And I think I'll just end this video with talking about how's a little doggy. Oh, little Jack Russell. And this video talking about since the 3 weeks ago, I don't know if you've been following the channel, my confidence went with that event, and I went through my channel and I was like, right, I'm going to delete everything. And that's a very old habit of mine. It's the only reason why I'm kind of showing my head to the world now, is that because for the last 10 years, I've always deleted everything I've done, everything I've written, everything. It's lasted like maybe a week on the internet or a week in physical writing. And that's, oh, you bastard, wasp. And that's because I just get so paranoid. And for the first time ever, I am kind of coming out of this, I think. And I think that most of what's doing that for me is I really, 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 really think, I'll share this with you actually. So when I was first going through psychoses when I was, 18, I remember going on YouTube and I found this woman, this girl, I don't know how, she was like my age actually, and she was talking about her experiences with schizophrenia, and it just made so much sense to me, even though when I went back to the videos later, it to a normal person it wouldn't make sense because I wanted to share it with someone else. But the thing that she used to say about the radio, even though she couldn't articulate it, she used to say there was like an alien in the radio box that was communicating. For me, I anchored onto that straight away, and I was like, yes, that makes sense. That's what I'm experiencing, And even though it wasn't in the most helpful way, it still made me feel seen, and it made me feel like I wasn't alone in what I was going through, and that there was some essence of transferability or communicability to it. And so this is what's driving me to make these videos. I really want to make these videos because by me hopefully talking about these experiences in an educated way, now that I've got more knowledge and a little bit more understanding of psychology, hopefully someone out there will listen to it and go, oh yeah, I have those experiences. And this is something else. The way that we feel something and the way that we communicate something is infectious. So if you're on a sinking ship, right? Not saying we are on a sinking ship, but if you're on a sinking ship and you start to panic and you start to shout catastrophes, everybody else on that ship gets a bit afraid because it's infectious. Our emotions are infectious. But if you can handle something, if you can handle yourself, and you can, provide education and reduce the fear, what you'll find, especially with psychoses, that half of the crises that you'll have are because of fear. You build the delusions when you're happy and you can be experiencing euphoria, but then when it does finally snap, or when you get disappointed because the hallucination doesn't come true or something, you'll be thrust into negativity. And that negativity is where the fear comes from when things get darker. And, I think by that reduced the fear for me about the radio box. But by me talking about these, hopefully it reduces the fear for other people. Because I do, from all that I've talked about in all my videos, I do think that psychosis and schizophrenia is an incredibly misunderstood condition. And not only is it misunderstood, it's also inflated. Both by people that are scared of what they've experienced and by people that have experienced other people experiencing things they're afraid of, right? And so if we can reduce the fear involved and articulate the experiences more accurately, then it can reduce the fear of the people that are on the ship that they think is sinking. That's my philosophy behind this, and I've probably done a terrible job of explaining that. But that's my purpose with this. So if I get called crazy in 10 years' time because I try to work for a web design company and they're like, you were talking about demons, aliens, and things inside your head in the radio, then I guess I'll just accept that. I guess I'm at that point now, I think, where I've got to kind of wise up and pick my path. That isn't a path, and I think this is my path. So yeah, have a good day, everyone. Bye for now.